We are live, excuse me, on Proline TV for this Tuesday, the 16th of December, 2025. That means, yes, since I can add, man, there's only a couple more weeks left for 2025. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the bowls, and we're also going to be taking a look at the brackets for college football as far as the playoffs are concerned. The latest lines, we'll give you some of our picks and update you through the bowls and the playoffs regarding key coaches, players of note, injuries, all that kind of good stuff. So that's what we're going to do here. We are not going to dive into the NFL tonight. We're going to be talking more about the NFL in the next few days. So we'll be doing that. Matter of fact, tomorrow you can check out some NFL talk with hopefully Jim down at Dom DeMarco's in Las Vegas. And that'll be at 1 o'clock Eastern. And matter of fact, keep this in mind too, that the show that Jim does down at the restaurant in Las Vegas is going to switch in the next 2 weeks to Tuesdays, same time Tuesdays. Of course, you've got Christmas and New Year's, the reason for that. But that's not until next week. And then on Thursday and Friday, we'll have some more NFL and college football talk. Mark Lawrence joins us, of course, Jim Feist, Andy Isco, and so forth. Okay, so let's get right to it. And we've got a game coming up in about an hour. This is going to be the second bowl game. And remember, I just said this yesterday. I was doing the show with Gary Furman. Matter of fact, I probably talked about close to 40 minutes before Gary was able to come on. He was a little late. He was involved with the press conference with the team. That pushed our interview back. And so I talked a lot about not everything we're going to talk about here today, of course, but, you know, just a lot of what's going on with the bowls and the playoffs and so forth. And one of the things I mentioned was to keep in mind, and again, we're going to be breaking this down into two parts. I'm going to be covering all the games up until the Hawaii Bowl, the Christmas Eve game. And then when we do part two, hopefully that'll be next week sometime. I'm sure it will. I don't know what time yet. Then we're going to do the rest. And the reason that it's important to break them up is because of all the changes that happen. And you would think, well, you know, if you're a player and you want to opt out, aren't you going to let necessary people know right away? Don't you know? And the fact is you don't. Whether or not we get the information on time or we don't, the fact is that if you take a look at the bowls that are scheduled in a couple of weeks, there are a handful of games where there's like no opt-out updates at all. And you know that's not going to be the case. So you still have no idea which key players are not going to be available in some of these games, which is why waiting until as long as possible to talk about those specific games that we think that there'll be some additional opt-outs, maybe even some other coaching changes, who knows, injuries in practice. I think that's the best way to do it. I was doing a contest today, was filling out all my contest stuff. And the good thing about these contests are that they do allow you to wait until pretty much the day of the pick, the day of the game to make your pick. So I think that I'm doing the ESPN contest. There's like 3 of them. They have just the game, the lines, and the order, the preference. So I think that's pretty cool. So I ventured into that. And one of the lines, the reason I'm bringing this up, one of the lines, I believe it's Troy 3.5. And that was the line for about, well, ever since the game came out. 3. It was like 3. Then I think it came down to 1.5 when we were on the show, and I did it yesterday. And I mentioned, oh, you know, look, see, the line's already changing, and this is the reason why. Well, another reason why is that, as I mentioned yesterday, is that a lot of, especially once you get through the full weekend of the NFL, there's so much going on, and people are placing their bets. And remember, when the bowls start, you get that first influx of I don't know whether or not you want to call them wise guys, but the first influx of bets, serious bettors, and they look at the lines and they say, hey, I think that this is going to be a good line to take advantage of now. And instead of waiting for the line to change, which would be against me if I wait until game day. Then, and I don't know what the percentage is of that. Maybe that's about, I don't know, 35%, maybe 25% of the total amount that gets spent on the games or on the specific game. Let's just say the Troy game. So then you get to 24 hours before the game and the line drops from 3 to 1.5. Then on game day, the line is now 3 Jacksonville State. So the line moved 6 points in a couple of days and over 4 points in 24 hours. There were no dramatic injuries or news or anything like that. But this is exactly what I said yesterday. And this is why, if you really look, this could work against you. Like in my situation, even though I don't like, this is like not one of those games where I would advise anybody to put a lot of money on. But in my situation, I like Troy. So that's the team I'm going to go with. And I was at a point where, no, I didn't do it earlier because I didn't really care about it. But if I took it at 3, well, I'm out 6 points now. It's very possible that somebody out there with a lot of influence made a substantial wager to really move this. But one of the things that I think that is also possible, maybe more likely, is that once you get through the weekend of the NFL, this is the first game, it's on a Tuesday, the Monday night game. Oh, I get to concentrate now on the bowl game that I had. Who cared outside of Troy and Jacksonville State about this game, this Veterans Bowl game? So what you do is, okay, the Monday night game, the weekend's over. Let's see how much money I have for the new week of wagering. And, this is the start of the new week. So you go into this game and you start looking at the game and you go, well, wait a second. Troy doesn't have their starting quarterback and their starting running back. Oh, Jacksonville State. And I already knew that, obviously. We talked about it yesterday, and I still didn't care. I think the one thing that does hurt Troy more than as far as the 2 injuries is the runner, Meadows. But as I said yesterday, the kid does not even have 700 yards rushing. Okay, he's not a 1,200-yard rusher. He's not the best player on the team. I mean, it could be, but I don't think he is. And then you look at the quarterback situation. Remember, Goose Crowder, starting quarterback, gets hurt, game 3 or something like that, out for about 2 months. The backup, who's going to play today, comes in and struggles for the first game or 2, which is likely, and then all of a sudden he starts playing really well. And Troy goes on this 5-game, I think, what do they have, like a 5-game winning streak with this kid with the backup? Let me see so I get it exact. So Crowder gets hurt in the Memphis game. That's game 3. And then Kilcrease comes in, the backup. All right, he comes in, he makes his first start against Buffalo and doesn't have a really good game. 148 yards passing. All right, so then they go to a bye. And that's the perfect opportunity for more reps and all that kind of stuff to get acclimated to be the starter. So what happens after that? Oh, and by the way, they did beat Buffalo in that game in his first start. They did beat Buffalo, even though he didn't have a great game. And Meadows only had 68 yards in that game. So they go to the bye, and they come out of the bye and go on a 4-game winning streak. So this is now a 5-game winning streak with Kilcrease, the backup. And the backup, Kilcrease, he had a 300-yard day against South Alabama in an overtime win, 200 passing, 100 rushing, basically. Comes right back with another overtime win against Texas State. There were dogs in both of those games. And in that one, Kilcrease had 415 yards passing and 5 touchdowns passing. And then they win their next 2. And this is when all of a sudden Kilcrease, his numbers start to go down a little bit. I think the reason it went down in the Louisiana Monroe game is because it was blowout. And he probably didn't really need him to pass too much. So he still had 223 and a touchdown. And then in the Louisiana win, he had probably his worst game statistically, just 180 yards and an interception. Actually, that wasn't. The worst one was the one after that stopped the winning streak, the one against Arkansas State. And they only had 187 total yards as a team. And then what happened after the bye? They came back to play Old Dominion. Well, Goose Crowder returned. And they lost 33-0. Well, that didn't work out. He had 98 yards passing and an interception. But then the next couple of games, they get back in the winning circle, win those two, qualify for the championship game. Crowder starts it, gets hurt. Kilcrease comes in, and it's still a very competitive game against a James Madison team who is now in the playoffs. That's right. So you got to keep that in mind. You're talking about an opponent. Remember, what were they, like a 23-point dog or something like that in the game? Oh, you see this right here? What is that? What is that, man? Oh, you're not even looking at it. I have to share the screen, dummy. Okay, there it is. Mark Lawrence's weekly playbook, the Playbook 2025 College Bowl Guide #1. All right, so this is what you want to purchase. Go to playbooksports.com. It's got all the cool stuff in it. Look at that. Last 4 years, bowl guide, 97-62, 61% on all sides. All right, so this is what you want to get. All right, no more for you. You got to pay for it. Okay, so, yeah, I just wanted to double check because, again, the line, where is it? Here it is. Okay, so the line was actually even the guide had the line at 3 Troy, of course, because this came out. They were putting it together. It didn't even come to print until a few days ago. So in the game, they lost to James Madison. It was 31-14, and it was a 24-point spread. But that game was a one-score game up until late in the game. James Madison had some late scores. So anyway, the fact of the matter is that this is a Troy team that had a really good loss at Clemson earlier in the year. They had a 16-0 lead on Clemson. That probably was a sign that Clemson was in a little bit of trouble, even though they got a little bit better, but still did not perform like the team that everybody thought they were going to be when the playoffs began. I mean, when the season began. But it was a good loss for Troy, and that really was the loss that got that had me saying, "Hey, I got to take a second look at this team." And that's what I did. And I ended up following Troy a lot. And I remember I told you in the beginning of the year, if you followed this show here on the channel, that I had Troy as the pick to win the division and play in the championship game. I forget what time of the year it was. It might have been midway through their winning streak, maybe the second win or the third win. And so anyway, that's the reason I'm sticking with Troy. Now, hey, maybe somebody knows something I don't. I'm not a professional handicapper. I always have to remind everybody of that. I'm just going to give you all the information that I can give you, and it's up to you to find out whatever else you can, and hopefully I can help you in putting together a really good bowl season of games here. So I know I haven't looked off to ask Mark when we do this on Thursday, what are the odds regarding the angles with, say, dogs and bowl games and things like that? Because I always just have it in my mind that dogs do really well during bowls. So it's interesting. Troy was the favorite a few days ago. Now they're the dog. And keep in mind, Troy was 9-3 against the spread this year. And Jacksonville State, 0-4 straight up. 1-3 again. Well, look, who cares about the point spread now that they're the favorite, but they're 0-4 straight up on the road, or I should say away from home. Of course, this is a neutral site. And let's see, I think they were a dog in all those games. So let me see if Jacksonville State, how many times they were a favorite on the road. Let's see. They were favored at Sam Houston. by 7, and they did not cover. They won that game by 2, keeping in mind Sam Houston was a winless team at that point. And then they went to the road and they played at Middle Tennessee, and they were a road favorite, and they won and didn't cover again. And then they went to UTEP, and they did cover as a 1-point road favorite and won by 3, keeping in mind that UTEP is pretty bad. So they've won. So they have won 3 road games as favorites by 2 points, by 3 points, and by 3 points. And they obviously step up in competition now because this is a Sun Belt team, and the Sun Belt is clearly better than Conference USA. That does not mean that Conference USA won't win some of these games against some of these teams. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe when it's all said and done and we're looking at, because next week we'll definitely have an opportunity to look at the whole week and 10 days worth of games and say, okay, do we see some conferences are better than others? And that'll give us another reason to wait things out before you wager on those games in the second and third weeks, because we get a lot more. Hey, Conference USA is 4-0 so far, or 0-4 so far. Okay, so there you go. I think another thing, you look at the side, like I said, with Meadows out and the quarterback out, Troy is not a team of highlight reel players. Jacksonville State has a couple. The quarterback, the running back. Those guys put up some big numbers this year on the ground, Creel and Cook. So, maybe that has something to do with it as well. But I've said my piece. Let's move on. All right, next one. The Cure Bowl. And this line is dropping now to 2.5. So does that mean by tomorrow it'll be 2.5 Old Dominion? But anyway, South Florida is a 3-point favorite here. And if you look at it here, the AAC, the American, 8-2 against the spread versus Sun Belt Conference teams in bowl games. So that's a good sign. And again, not a surprise. The American is the number 1 Group of 5 conference. Sun Belt would be number 3, sandwiched in between the Mountain West. Old Dominion, they're coming into this one with 5 straight wins. And as we said yesterday, remember this, and then this is a game that'll be on tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern, that both starting quarterbacks will not be playing. Colton Joseph is in the portal. It does not mean he's gone for good, but he's in the portal. So he's testing the waters. And that's a bad deal there for Old Dominion. And Ricky Ronnie's coming back, though. He has an extension. He's coaching the game. He'll be there. But it looks like they're going to start a freshman quarterback who only has 15 career attempts, Quinn Hennikel. All right. So now he has over 100 yards rushing. So that's the type of quarterback Old Dominion looks for. Joseph has over 1,000 yards, the quarterback that's transferring. So you can see that they're hoping Hennikel can pick things off. And who knows, maybe this is also a blessing in disguise for the Monarchs. They'll get to see Hennikel, and maybe they wind up, still getting Joseph to come back. As far as South Florida, though, no Byron Brown. So both starting quarterbacks are not playing in the game. And I think most people would believe that Brown will end up in Auburn, whereas head coach is Alex Golesh. New head coach Brian Hartline will be taking over at South Florida, the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. And the interim coach is going to be Kevin Patrick, the defensive line coach. So there is right there, you got the advantage for Old Dominion. This is why I'm saying maybe tomorrow, we're zeroing in on this game. Oh, look, the head coach is back for Old Dominion. The head coach is not back for South Florida. Oh, there's a major advantage for Old Dominion. So we'll see how that plays into it. But South Florida, their quarterback that's going to replace Brown is a senior, Gaston Moore. He's actually a Tennessee recruit. So he has played for 4 years with Tennessee. He only threw 44 passes, threw 20 passes for South Florida this year. But again, at least you got a senior, and it's probably his first start going up against a freshman for Old Dominion. And you've got the American better conference than the Sun Belt. You're only having to give a couple of points now. I think that's important. Also, how about this? South Florida has won all five, I believe it is. Yes, 5-0 as a bowl favorite, 4-1 against the spread. And Old Dominion, meanwhile, just 1-2 straight up, 0-3 against the spread in bowls. They have not won a bowl since 2016. This will be taking place also in Orlando, Florida. So as far as commuting, Old Dominion, it's not like they travel like Alabama. So you would think that South Florida would have a little bit of a home edge as well, which is why I'm sticking with South Florida in this one, minus the 2. The Ventures Bowl, talking about another Sun Belt versus Conference USA matchup. And Louisiana had high aspirations when the season began, lost their quarterback, and then they picked things up again when Lunch Winfield, you got to love the name, Lunch Winfield, took over. And when this happened, let's see. So Winfield, I believe, because I don't think he was not the first alternative. So you had, it was actually a 3-man battle for the job. And Walker Howard gets injured. So he started the season number 1. Then he gets out immediately. Week 1, Beal comes in. Daniel Beal, a redshirt freshman, and he plays for 3 games. They beat an FCS team, and then they lose the next 2. Lunch Winfield then comes in, the third quarterback. He comes in week number 5 against Marshall, and they win an overtime thriller, 54-51. Winfield has over 100 rushing and passing in the game. And yeah, that was a real exciting win in that one for Louisiana. I think it was in that game. There was like a late field goal to tie the game. Anyway, it was a very exciting game. And especially with Lunch Winfield, getting in there and hopefully helping to turn things around for a team at that point that was just 1-3 to start the season. Okay, then they go to a bye, come back out of the bye, go to James Madison, the playoff team, and only lose by 10, 24-14 on the road. So that was actually a very impressive loss. Winfield had 243 in the game. Then they come back and have a disappointing loss to Southern Miss, keeping in mind that Southern Miss at that time was the best team in the division. So they lose that game. And that was not a good game for Winfield, even though he almost ran for 100 yards. Then they go to Troy. And as I just mentioned, Troy was on a win streak, and they lose to Troy. So, and Winfield had almost 200 passing and over 100 rushing. So I don't think it was his fault. But the fact was they had the 4 first starts for Lunch Winfield were against 4 of the toughest teams. The only team that was missing was Old Dominion in the Sun Belt, and they lost 3 of them. Then things changed because at this point they're 2-6. The only hope for a bowl, at the time, you can get in now with 5 wins, but the only hope for a bowl at that point was to run the table. That's exactly what Louisiana did. They win their first 3 during the 4-game stretch as dogs. So they win 3 straight as dogs. Winfield has a big game against South Alabama in the win. He throws for 3 touchdowns against Texas State in that win. And then they have the following 2 games at Arkansas State. They win that game as a 2-point dog. And then they beat their arch rivals, Louisiana Monroe, in overtime to qualify for the bowl. So Louisiana, 4-0, straight up in their last 4 in order to become bowl eligible. Michael DeSormo, year 4, the head coach of the Raging Cajuns, has never won a bowl game, 0-3. So that's definitely something that you can look at it one of 2 ways. One, that's not good. He hasn't won a bowl game. That's he's not preparing his team properly. Number 2, we got to win a bowl game. This isn't a good look. And then you've got Delaware, their opponent, is only a 3-point dog in this one. Now, keeping in mind, this was an FCS team, really good winning FCS program, not a championship level program, but hey, we're in first round, second round FCS every year or 2, that sort of thing. Ryan Carty, year 4, the head coach, done a good job. They got a good quarterback and all. It's a nice team that was going to be ineligible until, oh, look at this. We don't have enough teams to qualify for the bowl, so we'll let Delaware in there. So, look, you can look at it as, wow, this is great. First year in the FBS, we get to a bowl. Because the one thing about bowls is we all know that this is the reason why the military academies always do well, is because that if Air Force, Army, Navy are in bowl games, they're playing their hearts out. That's just their nature. They're going to give it their all, whether it's an FCS opponent or a bowl game, but more so because the bowl game. They got pride, boom. Not a lot of, you can't say that about just about any other team that's not in a playoff game. Now, sometimes you can, like Utah, final game for Kyle Whittingham, they're going to play, pretty much, okay, they're going to play hard. But you don't know. You get the feeling, though, here that, well, Delaware should play well, right? They're going to go out and they're going to try to play hard. It's a first year, and they're in a bowl. And this is exciting, and this is great. On the flip side, you have a Louisiana team that can't win a bowl game. So that's the thing that I would be the most concerned with. But I like the fact that Louisiana ended the season the way that he did. I think they're clearly a better team than Delaware. They're one of the better teams, or they had the talent to be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt this season. They ended the season strong. It's a better conference than CUSA. And so I'm taking Louisiana. Now you have, check this out, a Sun Belt Conference USA matchup once again. And once again, let me just check this out. Yeah, interesting because Troy was the original favorite of the Sun Belt Conference USA. Then we know what happened there. They did the switcheroo. And then Louisiana is the favorite. And now Arkansas State's the favorite. And none of this should be a surprise because you've got a better conference and so forth. Missouri State, remember, their coach is gone. This is important. So he's going to be the new head coach at Coastal Carolina. So he's coming to the Sun Belt next year. So who's the interim head coach? The offensive coordinator, Bobby Petrino's son, Nick Petrino, is taking over just for this game. They still have not hired their head coach. Who knows? Maybe Nick Petrino is going to get an opportunity. Maybe that's why they haven't hired the coach yet. So we'll find out. As far as Arkansas State, they are 5-2 straight up, 5-1-1 against the spread in their last 7 games. Sort of like Louisiana, they really came on strong after getting off to a really poor start. Looked like they were just going to have. If you look at it, they had a couple pretty decent seasons. They went to bowls the last couple of years. They won 8 games last year, and so you thought, okay, well, Butch Jones, quality coach at this level. The problem is they lost a ton of talent from last year's team. So there wasn't a lot of expected. Then they got up to that slow start. But when you looked closer at it, this was a team that lost by 8 points at home against Iowa State. And unfortunately, though, they would lose to Louisiana Monroe. And they would also lose to Kennesaw, which at the time, nobody thought was as good as that they turned out to be. Because remember, this was a 2-win team last year. But still, the Louisiana Monroe game really stood out because they did not have a good season. But early on, it just didn't look good. You lost to Kennesaw, you lost to Louisiana Monroe. And as a matter of fact, they had no wins at that point, just FBS. Then everything changed against Texas State, and they went on a 4-game win streak. They beat Texas State. That was an upset, 13-point upset. Then they had a 9-point upset win. They would go on to also upset Troy on the road. That was breaking Troy's 5-game winning streak. And that's why it looked like when they did that Troy, Arkansas State, with their winning streak, was going to represent the division, but they would lose to Louisiana. And they also lost to Southern Miss before that. And that's what knocked them out. So they had that winning streak. Then they lose to Southern Miss at home, Louisiana at home. And those were close games. Lost by 6, lost by 4. But they were able to beat Appalachian State in the final game of the regular season. They won that game, very close game, by just 1 point. And that's why they've ended the season winning 5 out of 7. Butch Jones and Arkansas State won their bowl last year. So look, it's only 1 point. Once again, I'm going with Arkansas State. I'm going with the Sun Belt. And that's basically what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to numbers game. I'm just going to say, look, you've got these matchups, Sun Belt against Conference USA. I don't see like a definite, wow, this team in the Conference USA is just too good against the Sun Belt. Like it's a third best Conference USA team against like the sixth best Sun Belt, that sort of thing. I don't see that. So I'm just going to stick with the Sun Belt across the board. See if I can go whatever 2-1, 3-1, whatever the heck the deal is. Look, I like Missouri State. I like Ryan Beard. We talked about that this year. I thought he was a good coach. They had a nice young quarterback. Matter of fact, I think he's still there. I haven't heard that he left. The kid Clark, Jacob Clark, a very experienced kid. So yeah, I think you lose the coach. That's a little bit of an issue. But look, Butch Jones, quality coach, bowl game. And like I said, this is just a numbers game. But these are just really tough games to handicap. That's just the bottom line. That's the reason why I'm just going to go with that strategy. Okay. Next up, the Myrtle Beach Bowl. And where do you think that is? All right. So now you have a Conference USA champ against a MAC champ. So this is a really good matchup. And you have Jerry Mack, who has to be considered the Group of Five Coach of the Year. He took a 2-win team in his first year and turned them into a championship team. And that championship team ended the season winning 10 of 11, which is really just a tremendous job. So I don't know how longer he'll be at Kennesaw if he has another strong year next year. And if you look at his opponent, Western Michigan, if you followed us from the very beginning of the season, Western Michigan, we labeled them as they were either a sleeper or a long shot pick from the MAC, one or the other. And they came through for us. That's because we like Lane Taylor. We think he's doing a really good job there. And lo and behold, they come out and they have a big season and win the MAC. And they've won 9 out of 10. This is a team that took North Texas, the American championship opponent, the team who lost, runner-up, took them to overtime, lost that game in overtime. They also beat Toledo, who was considered the best team in the MAC for the most part over the last several years, even though they have been in the championship game for a few years. But still, impressive wins for Western Michigan. Kennesaw had that strong, even though at the beginning of the season, this is why it's so you don't know what you're getting. That's why I say it every year. You don't know what you're getting in the NFL or college football until you're weeks in, maybe even a month or so in, because matchups and it's the beginning of the season. Well, Kennesaw lost to Wake Forest 10-9 in week 1. And after a 2-win season in Wake, nothing was expected from Wake this year. Coaching change. Oh, that's going to be 2 bad teams. Well, that's ugly. Nope. They're both in bowls. And Kennesaw is a championship team. But Kennesaw, if you look at it, the problem is that was it. That was what you can hang your hat on outside the conference. Whereas Western Michigan had a couple more of impressive showings, and they had a nice, impressive win in the championship game. Kennesaw, I think there was a comeback of the Jacksonville State win. That was a close one. Very fortunate to get by that one, winning that game late. Great season for Kennesaw. You know what? I think this line's going to drop. It's already dropped a little bit from 4 to 3.5. I can see this line dropping more by game time, 11 o'clock on the 19th, which is what was that? Thursday morning, the 19th, whatever it is. So I really think that's going to drop that spread, because Kennesaw, they're just one of those teams that I think when you take a look at them, you take a look at the fact that, they have an exciting quarterback in Amari Odom, even though Brock Lowry is no slouch. He's more of a runner than a passer. So it's not like Western Michigan or Kennesaw. They don't have any. I mean, Kennesaw does have, I think they have this 6'8" receiver, a Rutgers transfer. That could be interesting to keep an eye on. I don't know how many more years of eligibility he has, but I'm not sure where he is. But hopefully he's got enough time to become something, because it'd be nice to see if maybe a 6'8" receiver could do something at the next level from from the Sun Belt Conference, or who knows? Maybe he'll wind up transferring. Now I got to see where he is. Where is this kid? Because he would be a really good red zone target. Let's see. Where is he? Wait a second. I could have sworn that was on Kennesaw. Did I have that? That was the championship game. It wasn't Kennesaw. It was Jacksonville State. It's DeAndre Johnson. And he actually had a touchdown pass, I believe, in the game. So this kid is 6'8", 215, and he's only a sophomore. I don't think he's going to be at Jacksonville State very long. I think there'll be a team in the group of five that'll see this kid and his size, and he started out in the group of five, and they're going to give him a little money. So keep an eye on DeAndre Johnson. Heck, he's playing tonight for Jacksonville State. But look, Kennesaw's got another receiver. I knew they had a receiver. It's just a different receiver. I think his name is Benyard. So they got a good receiver. They've got a really dynamic quarterback. Western Michigan has a good running back. And matter of fact, I think the running back was the MAC MVP, Buckley, I believe, and Lowry. Look, the MAC is better than the Conference USA. Every conference is better than Conference USA. So that's where I'm going. I'm going with Western Michigan. And I just think that, again, if I'm just looking at it from if I had no allegiance to either one of these teams and I'm just a fan, you're going to root for Kennesaw State. You know, it's a great story, and they've had a really fun year, and they've won some really close games in dramatic fashion. And, you know, it's a nice story, and those things happen. And so, yeah, I mean, matter of fact, in the contest they do, they ask you if you want who the winner and the team with the odds. And so I actually took Western Michigan to win, and I took Kennesaw to cover. I don't do that often, but because this is one of those matchups where if both teams were playing in different games, I know I'd take them both, but they're playing in the same game, so I have to decide on one of them. And I'm taking the better conference champion. I'm taking the team that I liked before the season began. So I'm not going to deviate from that. The Broncos have won 9 out of 10. So it's really good. You got a team that's won 9 out of 10 against a team that's won 10 out of 11. So this is a really good matchup. I'm glad they got it right, which is very rare for the NCAA. The Gasparilla Bowl is also on the 19th. This will be the next game up at 2:30. I guess, is this a Saturday? Maybe this is the Saturday games because it probably is. Okay, so wait, let me see. Where's my calendar? It is 19th. It's Friday. All right, so that's good. I mean, it's Friday, 11 o'clock. We can start watching. We can get Friday's a good day, sort of like college basketball in the tournament. You take off on Thursday and Friday. Maybe you want to take off on Friday and do some bowl hunting and bet on some games. So we'll and a great way to start off with a really good, two champions playing each other at 11 o'clock. Then you get the Gasparilla Bowl at 2:30 in Tampa, Florida. And here we have, I think, a good upset possibility. We're going to take Memphis. The line has dropped. It dropped a little bit. It's now at 170, 4.5. I was up to 6. And this is a game. This is a situation where I think you want to take them now. If you're going to take Memphis, take them now. Here's why. If you look at the opt-outs, it's completely one-sided. No key players at this point have opted out for Memphis. And you look at North Carolina State, they've had 5 key opt-outs. The only good thing is their quarterback, CJ Bailey, a very exciting quarterback. He's had a good season. He's there. Because if he wasn't there, this might be a pick'em. But he's there. Unfortunately, the tight end's not there. And he's an NFL tight end. That's the reason he's not going to play in the bowl. You've got Hollywood Smothers, the number 1 running back. He is going to more than likely transfer, so he opted out. You have an NFL quality tackle, offensive tackle, who decided to opt out. Defensive tackle and corner. Matter of fact, Devin Marshall, the corner who opted out, 15 PDs and 2 interceptions this year. A lot of key guys have opted out for NC State in this game. Memphis 4-0, straight up and against the spread in the last 4 bowl games. NC State 0-5 straight up, 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 bowl games. So all of that, even before they opt out, said, hey, Memphis is looking pretty good here based on those trends. The one negative, there's only one. The head coach, Charles Huff, will be taking over from Memphis. This will be his third coaching gig in 3 years. So he goes from Marshall, and I think he was there for a few years. Then he goes to Southern Miss for a year, bounces over to Memphis the next year. So Ryan Silverfield is off to Arkansas. The interim will be their assistant head coach and DB's coach, Reggie Howard. So that's good. It's your assistant head coach. So I think that's a good thing because that means he's doing a lot of things a head coach would do to help his head coach. So he's already kind of got a feel for this. So I don't think that's going to be too big a deal for Memphis. I'd much rather have that than all those opt-outs. So I'm going to go ahead and take Memphis and jump on the money line here. And then we got the bowl games. Actually, this is the bowl game that comes up at night on Friday night. And I tell you what, let's hold off on this. Let's hold off on the bowl games because what I want to do a little bit at the end is go over the brackets and the bowls and the playoffs. All right. So next, let's jump over to, here we go. Let's jump over because we only have a few games left. Washington State, Utah State. And Utah State, the line is down a little bit from 3.5 to 2.5. And Utah State, 1-6 straight up versus bowl teams this year. So that's not good. Their only win was versus Fresno State, but they're 9-2 against the spread. Washington State, one of our favorite group of 5 teams. They are 8-3 against the spread this year. So you can watch, cross that out. Both teams really good against the spread. Matter of fact, the Cougars 7-1 in the last 8. I think one of the reasons the line is the way it is Jimmy Rogers did such a good job this year at Washington State that he's off to Iowa State. That's a great gig, great opportunity for Jimmy Rogers, and good to. I mean, they had first it was Dickert did a really good job. He goes off to Wake and does a nice job, and then Rogers. A lot of people thought Washington State was definitely in trouble this year, and they get off to a matter of fact. If you remember the start they got off to, it was a really crazy couple of weeks because they played an FCS team and barely beat them. Then they had a game-winning field goal with 3 seconds left, or it would have went to overtime. So they come back the next week, homecoming against San Diego State, and they beat up San Diego State. And they were a 2-point favorite in the game. All right. At that point, it was like, wait a second, San Diego State's not good. And Washington State is still kind of just from the Pac-12. Matter of fact, last year they won 8 games. And they're only that didn't make sense to a lot of people. And then he blew out San Diego State and it was like, yeah, well, wasn't that supposed to happen? Of course, lo and behold, San Diego State, after that blowout loss, wound up blowing out Cal not too long ago after that. But that's a different team we'll talk about next week. So then after the blowout win, they go to North Texas and lose the game 59-10 with 5 turnovers. And it's the type of game, and we talk about this in horse racing, handicapping, which, by the way, we will be back on Thursday. Gulfstream races, we're going to talk about that with John Hardoon on Thursday. Then we take a month off, and we come back. I think it's the week of the 24th. Big races at Gulfstream Park, late January. That's when we return to a weekly horse racing show again. I figured I'd throw that in there. So what I'm going to say is, though, you draw a line in horse racing through a horse's just one race. It's a bad race. It's an anomaly. We draw a line through it. Same thing in football. Every football team is you can give them a mulligan, draw a line through it, and when you do that, you look at a completely different team because that was just by the end of the season, you would look back at that and go, what? How did that happen? I know North Texas is good, but Washington State would go on to lose to Ole Miss as a 33-point road dog by 3. They would go on the very next week to lose to Virginia, the ACC championship loser, on the road as a 15-point dog, and they outgained them in that one. And then they would go on to go to James Madison just a few weeks ago as a 14-point road dog, and they had a late lead against James Madison, and that would have knocked James Madison out of the playoffs, and Washington State lost by 4. So Washington State loses by 3 to Ole Miss, 2 to Virginia, and 3 to James Madison. That's the kind of season it was for Jimmy Rogers in his one and only year coaching at Washington State. So he's gone. Jesse Bobbitt, the defensive coordinator, takes over in the game. The new head coach is going to be Kirby Moore, Kellen's younger brother. So we'll see how that works out. So far, so good. The last couple of coaches, though, at Washington State. Kirby, by the way, was the offensive coordinator at Missouri under Drinkwitz the last 3 years. Okay, so you also have to keep this in mind. Washington State played Utah State last year and beat them up pretty convincingly by 21 points. And then you look at Utah State, and this is the first year for Bronco Mendenhall, very good head coach. So it's nice to see that they're off to a good start there. They've alternated wins and losses in the last 7. All right. Now, if it stays on that pattern, they'll win the game. All right. But that's a model of inconsistency. Anyway, they're 2-2 straight up, 4-0 against the spread in the last 4 games, though. And in the 2 losses, they lose in overtime, and they lost by 1 point to Boise State. So that's all good. I like Utah State. They got a nice quarterback, the Utah transfer, Bryson Barnes. But I just like Washington State better. And just because the coach is out, I mean, that's it. In my mind, that's it. I mean, that is a concern, but that's it. Why would I believe that Washington State's not better than Utah State, even though I like both of them? This is important. There is an opt-out. Utah State, we talked about Barnes, the quarterback, his number 1 target, Braden Pegan, opted out. He's almost a 1,000-yard receiver. He's got 60 receptions, 926 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Will not play for Utah State. I was taking Washington State anyway, but I'm definitely taking them knowing that their number 1 receiver's out on Utah State's side. The Boca Raton Bowl, and this one is going to be on the 23rd of December, and you have a Toledo team that is absolutely on fire at the end of the season. They've won 4 straight up ATS by 125-18. And I'm sure that helped give Jason Candle the head coaching job at UConn. So we all wondered why he didn't get a job opportunity at a Power 5 school, Power 4 school. Well, he's still not in the Power 4, but he's definitely going a little step up. So he's at UConn. Jim Mora left a really good program behind him after he took over a lousy program. So we'll see how he does there at UConn. And Mike Jacobs will be the new head coach. And he was an 8-year head coach down in the minor leagues, Division II. He actually was down there at 2 different stops, and he had a 74-17 record. Division II, 2 different stops. Then the last 2 years was at FCS Mercer and went 20-6 in 2 years. So Mike Jacobs has done a lot of winning at the lower levels. He now gets his opportunity at Toledo starting next year. The interim is co-offensive coordinator, quarterback coach Robert Weiner. All right. Now, big opt-out. Malachi Davis, the top edge rusher for the Rockets, is not going to play. So he led the team, I believe, in both sacks and tackles for loss. Also added 36 tackles, which is pretty nice. Trends. Let's throw some trends into this. We always got to throw some trends into it. And these 2 trends favor Louisville. Toledo, 1-11, straight up. 4-8 against the spread in the last 12 as dogs of 7 or more points. And the line is dropped. So that's good for Toledo. Louisville, meanwhile, has covered 8 straight as favorites of more than 7 versus an opponent of back-to-back straight-up ATS wins. So all of a sudden, because the line is dropped under 7 for right now, both of those trends go out the window. But this is a line that has dropped a couple of points. And look, we still got a week to go. So keep an eye on the number based on those trends. But yeah, I'm not too surprised that this line's dropping a little bit. But look, unless Jeff Brom becomes the next coach at Michigan, you got Jeff Brom, a power 4 coach, a very good coach, is going to be coaching against an interim coach. So you got a mismatch there. And look, Louisville had a bad stretch. We all know that. It was ugly. They lost that game to Cal as a heavy favorite. We all know that because we had Cal, as you know. And then they lose 3 straight, I think, or something like that. But they did recover in the rivalry game to end their season 41-0 against Kentucky. All right. If they didn't have that game, I would think completely different about this matchup. But they woke up before it was too late. It murdered a SEC team. Maybe that helped get Soups fired. But fact is that this line is now coming down a little bit too much in my mind. So I'm definitely going to go with Louisville here. Keep in mind, Toledo played Kentucky. You like to have those similar matchups. So it was Louisville 41-0 against Kentucky. Toledo lost by 8 to Kentucky earlier this year. And they also lost to Washington State on the road by 21 points. Those were the 2 big out-of-conference games that Toledo played this year. And when I went through that winning streak, the 4-game winning streak coming in, the very successful one, keep in mind that most of those teams were not very good MAC teams. Okay. So anyway, there you go. We're going to favor Louisville. And then I think this is the last one. No, it's not. We still have 3 more to go. What did they do here? I don't know why they do. What happens? Let me refresh this. Because the Hawaii Bowl, that's the last one. Okay, where are we? Here we go. Okay. Western Kentucky, Southern Miss. This is the New Orleans Bowl. And Western Kentucky is 4-0 all time against Southern Miss. Look, Southern Miss, this is one matchup between CUSA and Sun Belt that I am not going to say because it's not real. Southern Miss has been a Conference USA team for a very long time. They made the move to Sun Belt real recently, so I'm not into that as far as this matchup. Matter of fact, I do believe all of these matchups, like I said, anything can happen in these matchups. These are not very good teams, most of them, except for the Kennesaw Western Michigan matchup. These are just bowl qualifying teams from lower level conferences where anything can happen. But if I was going to go with one team where I'm taking the Conference USA team, this is where it would be. I would take Western Kentucky. The line's up to 4.5 now. Tyson Helton is still there. He's been there for 7 years. But as I mentioned before, Charles Huff, who was with Southern Miss, is gone. He will not coach the game, so it's a nice edge for the Hilltoppers. But out of all the interim coaches that are moving in to this position, this might be the one that is going to be the easiest transition, because Blake Anderson, a very successful head coach at Utah State and Arkansas State. Matter of fact, he went to 6 bowls in 7 years at Arkansas State, 3 bowls in 3 years at Utah State, left Utah State to come and came here. Okay. He is now the new head coach at Southern Miss. So a very easy transition. Huff leaves, Anderson moves in. So he's not just the interim coach, he's the head coach. So he's going to be taking over. He was the offensive coordinator this year at Southern Miss. So that will make it easier, no doubt, for Southern Miss. But there is a connection here. Southern Miss played a CUSA team this year, Louisiana Tech, on the road, and lost. So again, like I said, and Southern Miss 4-6-1 ATS, Western Kentucky 7-4. Southern Miss ended the season on a 3-game losing streak, all as a favorite. Okay. But the matchup should be really good. You got a quarterback for both teams, Tisdale and Braxton, 2 of the better quarterbacks at this level playing against each other. So keep an eye on that matchup. But I do like Western Kentucky. It's not a big one, but I do think that especially the way Southern Miss ended their season, and then they lose their coach. I don't know. That's not good. Frisco Bowl, UNLV in Ohio. And this is going to be another one of the upsets that I'm going to go with. So first Memphis, now Ohio. And UNLV, we talked about this for the whole week leading up to the Mountain West Championship game. A big disaster with UNLV, putting them in the championship game against Boise. Once again, they can't get blown out once again. So I don't know where UNLV is going to be up here, but I can't imagine it's going to be great. But check this out. UNLV, they've had a record of 3-3 versus bowl teams this year. In their wins, they did beat a MAC team, fellow MAC team. They beat Miami. Ohio also beat Miami. And UNLV's other two wins were conference wins against Utah State and Hawaii. Okay, so those are your bowl wins. Keeping in mind that those two Mountain West wins were at home. The Miami game was on the road. And let me see, because I remember that UNLV game a lot against Miami because I had UNLV in that game. And they were behind and had to make a furious comeback to win that game. I was very, very fortunate. That was like one of the games this year that I probably was very fortunate more than anything because I've had some bad luck games, as you know, that we've gone over. Yeah, they trailed 38-24 in the fourth quarter, came back to win that game. So, but that's so again, you're down 14 points. The other two wins against bowl teams were at home. The losses, 2 blowout losses to Boise, and they also lost at home to New Mexico. Meanwhile, when you look at Ohio, I mentioned they beat Miami. They had one of their losses, tough loss to Western Michigan, only by 4 points on the road. So that was a big one. That put Western Michigan on the trajectory to the MAC championship and Ohio out. And I think the Ohio loss to Ohio State earlier this year was actually pretty good. They lost to Ohio only by 28 points, 37-9. That's pretty respectable, actually. It was a push on the line. Brian Smith in his first year, Dan Mullen in his first year. Of course, Dan Mullen, he's got a lot of experience and an major edge there in the matchup with the Bobcats. But check this out. This is probably the trend of part one of our bowl coverage. And you can only get this at Playbook Sports. And don't forget next year to order the Playbook Guide, because this is where I get all these trends from. Ohio has covered 16 straight as dogs of 19 or less when they take on an opponent with a winning percentage of 666 or more. And they're 1-0 this year in that same trend. 16 straight for Ohio. The line has gone up from 4.5 to 5.5. I'm not too surprised by that. You get Dan Mullen's name. You get UNLV, definitely a more sexy team, Mountain West champion, runner-up the last 3 years. And Ohio, okay, it's Ohio. That's not sexy, right? But I'll give you another reason to take Ohio. They've won 6 straight bowl games, okay? They've also, check this out, the MAC versus the Mountain West. Even though the Mountain West is a better conference than the MAC. That's why I said before, don't be surprised. Conference USA, they can end up beating the Sun Belt teams 3-1. Anything is possible. Well, the MAC, 5-1 straight up in the last 6 matchups versus Mountain West Conference teams in bowl games. 5-1 straight up in the last 6. So I'm taking Ohio here. Ohio was one of my early season dog picks when they upset West Virginia early in the season. Matter of fact, that was the cover that made it 16 straight because West Virginia started the season 1-0. So that put them right there at 666 or higher. And Ohio covered the trend. And you do have to keep that in mind, that these trends go down the line. Doesn't matter if it's 1-0 or, it's the second week of the season or the end of the season. But when you get to 16 straight, you know that definitely is significant. Look, UNLV's got an exciting quarterback. They've got the Mountain West Conference Offensive Player of the Year, former Virginia quarterback, Calendria. He's really good, but Parker Navarro is also a pretty good quarterback for Ohio. They also have a 1,000-yard rusher. Bangura has already rushed for over 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns. Navarro has over 800 yards rushing. Bruni has over 500 yards rushing. Between the three of them, they have 30 touchdowns on the ground. So, yeah, I'm taking Ohio in the upset in this one over UNLV. And then the final game of part one of our playoff preview. We'll be back next week for part two. And it goes right through Christmas, and that is Cal and Hawaii. And it would not surprise me to see this line change between now and the kickoff on Christmas Eve. This is an 8 o'clock game on Christmas Eve, so that's cool. I used to like it when Hawaii used to play on Christmas. I always thought that was cool because you would never see the NFL on Christmas, and there was nothing on. I mean, I didn't watch the NBA, so it was really nice to have a football game on Christmas. But yeah, I'll take because it's 8 o'clock, so I just won't watch the game. I'll record it, and I'll just watch it on Christmas, and I'll just zone out the score. I don't think it'd be that difficult. It's Cal and Hawaii. All right, so we know Wilcox is out. He's been out for about a month. The new head coach is actually Oregon's defensive coordinator who will be coaching in the playoffs. The interim coach, get this, Nick Rolovich. And if it sounds familiar, it should for Hawaii fans. He was a head coach at Hawaii and had a successful run at Hawaii, so much so that he got a head coaching job at Washington State. So Rolovich, who is an assistant, he's a senior offensive assistant, is taking over. And overall, at both Hawaii and Washington State, in 6 years of coaching, he was one game over 500, which is not bad for Hawaii and Washington State. Cal, meanwhile, where he'll be coaching, not Hawaii, where he'll be coaching, 2-2 straight up, 1-3 against the spread as a favorite. And I bring that up. It's not a major deal, but I bring that up because they're 4-3 straight up and against the spread as a dog. So yes, they've won 4 out of 7 straight up as a dog. So remember, we mentioned the SMU game. And matter of fact, we've had Cal twice this year. No, we didn't mention the SMU game. We mentioned the Louisville game. We've had Cal twice this year as double-digit dogs that came through for us to win the game outright. Louisville, SMU. So we definitely like Cal. I mean, they have maybe the best freshman quarterback in the nation. That's going to be interesting to see if he leaves. We have not heard anything yet about him. You know, he's going to play in this game from what we've heard. And, you know, maybe one of the reasons why he might decide to stay, that was a pretty good hire. So we'll see if that's exactly what happens because they already lost Mendoza, who went to Indiana. And I don't want to lose another highly touted quarterback prospect there at Cal. They have not won a bowl game since 2019, the Bears, but Hawaii has not won a bowl game since 2020. Matter of fact, it's the last time they've been in a bowl because they had the 21 bowl canceled for you know what. Hawaii's been a better spread team than Cal overall this year, and check this out. This is another big one. Hawaii has covered 13 straight at home against FBS opponents and have covered the last 9 as a home dog. So even if the line switches, you still have 13 straight covers at home against FBS teams. Now, there's the big opt-out is on the side of Hawaii. So even though I'm leaning towards Hawaii at this point, Jackson Harris, who's the best skilled position player in the game, in the matchup, has opted out. Now, I believe he went to Stanford, transferred to Hawaii, did nothing at Stanford because he's a young kid. You know, do you think he was there a couple of years? Goes to Hawaii, breaks out. He had almost 1,000 yards receiving, 963 yards, and 12 touchdowns with a 19.6 yard average. So this is a kid that's why he's transferring. He's going to get a payday with a Power 4 team, no question. So remember the name Jackson Harris for Hawaii and see what happens there. But I'm leaning towards Hawaii at this point. And I will say this, if you agree with me and you're going to thinking of taking Hawaii, then take them now. Because again, I haven't heard anything yet about the quarterback leaving or not. Let me see. I mean, I wish his name wasn't so difficult to spell. And if he does, I mean, at some point, the kid's got so much talent that we're going to have to do something about his name. Yeah, see, let me see if I could find out anything at this point regarding this kid. Let's see, quarterback. There it is. Okay. So let's see if I see anything at all regarding whether or not. Let's see. No, let's see. Bears Insider. Let's check out Bears Insider. See what they have to say. Frosh quarterback talks about his decision to return to Cal, his relationship with quarterback coach Nick Rolovich, and his new head coach. Okay. So let's get this out of here. So let's see. There it is. It sounds like he's staying. Let's see. I don't see anything here. Let's see. First and foremost, okay, he wants to thank the Lord and Savior. And yeah, he says, allow me to still play this game. And I'm allowed to have one more game with these guys, with these boys, as the roster will change significantly next season. So it's not, keep in mind what he means. And let's see. Oh, he talks about Coach Rolovich again. And let's see. Coming home. Yeah, I don't see anything other than all this to me says that he's coming back to Cal. I was like looking for the smoking gun where he just says it, but I think it's pretty obvious. Yeah, see, here it is. Has committed to return to Cal. The former 5-star recruit won the job as a freshman. So there you go. Breaking news. All right. And I guess, talking about Rolovich. Okay. So there you go. We got the news there. So he is definitely going to return. So you don't have to run to the betting window and just in case he had decided to transfer. So he's good to go. But I would probably do it anyway, because like I said, I think if the game is going to switch, if the line is going to switch, like some of these games will, I could see this one switching to Hawaii because they'll look at this. They'll see a lot of these guys, not hard to find out that Hawaii has this type of a home record. So I think that's going to pop out, but not having Jackson Harris could also maybe keep them away. But remember, Hawaii, Timmy Chang, he's the head coach. He's going to be coaching for Cal. Rolovich, even though he has experience, he is not the head coach. But hey, again, just like I was saying about the other coach, Blake Anderson, if you're looking for a coach that is a really good, like a good interim, like the best interim type of situation, it's not bad. Cal does also have a pretty good situation going on there. All right. So there you go. Those are the bowl games. Again, we are going to be back next week to talk about all the other bowl games, starting with the game that is on the 26th, Central Michigan and Northwestern. And that's actually a game that might be one of my top plays. That's only a 10-point line against Central Michigan. And remember, can you believe it now? Remember when we were talking before their game against Louisiana Monroe a couple of months ago, when Northwestern was about a 10-point home favorite against Louisiana Monroe. And we were on the air going, remember, there were a couple of games I did that when I could not believe the spread. And we talked about it. And it was like, why is Northwestern only a 10-point favorite against one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt. How is Northwestern at home? How is that even possible? And sure enough, they blew out Louisiana Monroe. And I said the same thing against the Notre Dame Arkansas game when Notre Dame was whatever they were. What were they, like a 7-point favorite or something like that at Arkansas? And it just destroyed them. So, well, hopefully we'll feel that way next year. So we'll be able to cash in, right? Cash in again, maybe even bigger this time. Let's now talk about the college football bracket. And the playoffs begin on Friday. I'm your host, Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in here to Proline TV. We are live on our coverage here on Tuesday evening at 9/11 Eastern. If you want to check out the Bowl Part 1 preview, you can check that out. For anybody that is watching on demand, you can check it out. We have that show that's in the library and links in the description as well, because we have interviews last week and this week with Gary Furman of Canesport.com for the Miami Hurricanes point of view, and Owen Buchanan from TexAgs.com from the Texas A&M point of view. So I was real fortunate to be able to get both guys for just the one game and first round of college football action that is clearly going to be the best game and the most entertaining. And so that was a lot of fun. So yeah, check that out. All right, now let's go to game number 1 because we're going to break down these first games. Then we're going to go over our bracket predictions. So let's take a look at game 1. Let me pop up the line. I believe the line is still somewhere about 1.5. Yep, Alabama at 1.5 here. And I don't think that's going to change. I think Alabama will stay a favorite. I wouldn't even be surprised if the line moved up a little bit more before game time. Was what? A month ago? We sat here and we talked about the Alabama-Oklahoma game. And it was in Alabama. And we talked about how, I think the line, what was the line in that game? It was 6. So Alabama was favored by 6. And we talked about how the game only 6 in Alabama at that point, because let me make sure where they were, because Bama started the slide towards the end of the season, and it started a few weeks earlier, right after the Tennessee win. That was like their last impressive win of the season. You got to go all the way back to October 18th. Okay, so from September 6th, from their 73-0 win over that same Louisiana Monroe team I just mentioned, from September 6th all the way to October 18th against Tennessee, when they won by 17 points against Tennessee. During that stretch, and of course those were all wins, that was the best of Alabama football this year. Then the slide started the very next week at South Carolina. As a 12-point favorite, they came back. They trailed by 7 with 3 minutes to go at South Carolina. Okay, you don't hear the committee talking about that. Oh, they just want to talk about how they were a 17-0 lead against Auburn and how impressive that was. How impressive was it to be down by 7 with 3 minutes to go at South Carolina then? Okay, they were able to come back and win the game, of course, in regulation. That was this first sign of things not doing too well, because they played LSU after the bye and they only scored 20 points. They win the game 20-9. They barely covered. They only had 56 yards rushing in the game. The very next week was this game, the game against Oklahoma. And even though they had a big advantage, yards advantage, they had a advantage of 406 to 212. They lost the game. Okay, they lost the game, right? So now, and again, when we went into it, what we're starting off with was they had already showed signs that, I don't know. That LSU game was a big one because that was one of my top plays of the week, because I still felt that, all right, no, I'm willing to give you one, game to South Carolina. I'm willing to give you that. But hey, this has been a really good run. They're already talking about, I think they were top 5 at the time, already talking about They've got a national championship type team. And then this game came and we looked at it. We said, well, the one thing that we're concerned about is this could be a bad matchup because Oklahoma plays great defense and Alabama can't play football from both sides. They can't throw and run. They do not have balance on offense. They can throw the ball. They can't run the ball. Matter of fact, let me see exactly. Let me pop up. Let me see. Let me find out exactly where Alabama is in rushing offense. It's got to be like way down here. Where's Alabama? Look at that. 117th nationally in rushing offense. Alabama. The tremendous runners that this team has had. Now, one of them transferred to Michigan, Justice Haynes. And what a big help he would have been, but he got hurt anyway. I don't know if he would have got hurt if he was playing for Alabama. But the fact is that this is still Alabama. You don't have someone else behind Justice Haynes. So that's where they are. Okay, so that's their rushing offense. Now, where's rushing defense for Oklahoma? 5. So last year, when they beat them 24-3 at home, they were a 14-point home dog. Okay. They held Alabama to 2.3 yards rushing and 2.4 yards rushing in both games, because in the game this year, they were a 6-point road dog, as I mentioned. They win the game by 2. And that's the big problem, is Alabama cannot run against Oklahoma. They can't run against anybody, basically. And now with Oklahoma, it's what they're just going to do. They just need to run just to show that we can't throw the ball you can't just pin your ears and come after us. But you would think that Venables has had a lot of time now to prepare. And he's one of the best defensive minds in college football. There's no doubt about that. We just don't know what kind of a head coach he is. That's still up to debate. But we know he can coach defense. And the fact that he knows he's done it, he's shut this team down. Does he go right back and just, hey, we're going to stick with the same plan, and that's it because we won both games, or is he going to look back at the game from last month where they were 2-1 down in yards and say, you know what? We're so dominant against this team, and this team can't run the ball against anybody. Maybe if there's a linebacker that is more of a run defender, and we've got another linebacker that's more of a pass defender, maybe we should switch those guys out. And my point is that maybe we should do something where we throw a little bit more on the passing side and not worry too much about the running game. And because if you know they can't run the ball against you, because they can't, then you've got to do everything in the world to stop the passing game. And they have one of the better, of course, Alabama has one of the better young quarterback prospects. Might even be the second quarterback chosen in the draft. But still, this is not. Matter of fact, let's take a look. Where's Alabama? Where's their passing offense? Let's see. It's got to be pretty good, especially as bad as their rushing offense is. All right, 23rd. So the 23rd. Let's take a look at the numbers with Simpson overall. 7.6, nice ratio, 26-5. So he's throwing 251 a game. Okay. So if you can limit that and say this is my point. So he's at 251 a game. Now let's take a look at let's go back to the passing offense. Okay. So where were they again? Alabama was 23. Okay. So now let's see, of course we know Mr. Maker in North Texas. Here, Ole Miss, playoff team. So Ole Miss is third nationally. They are third nationally at 309 a game. almost 60 yards more. So that's my problem here, is that even though we know Alabama has got a good young quarterback and that's the side that works for them, they're not that proficient in the passing game. It's not like they're so good in the passing game. Yeah, we're okay. We get by. We don't need the running game. No, they're again, good young quarterback. They got some weapons, but they're only at 250 a game. So if you're Oklahoma, you just got to find a way to, hey, let's knock the 250 down to 220. And I don't think we're going to lose much in the running game. And then it's up to Washington State's transfer quarterback, John Mateer, in order to get them going offensively. Now, the good news for Mateer in his last start was that he passed for more yardage than he has had than any other game this year except one. 318 yards passing against LSU. A very good team, defensive team. Problem is he threw 3 interceptions in the game, but he did have 2 touchdown passes. Now, I don't know if all 3 were the bad variety. I don't have the information here. I don't know if one was a Hail Mary at the end of the half, that sort of thing. But Oklahoma won the game. It was a very close game. They had to hold LSU in the last drive. That was a game they could have lost. Look, I don't think Oklahoma should be in the playoffs. Okay? I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Notre Dame is a better team than Oklahoma. But it is what it is. And I say that because I'm taking Oklahoma. And this is what I talk about all the time. You know, we talk about this in college basketball as well. And the same thing in college football. You can have your debates as far as whether you think a team deserves to be in or not and all that stuff. And that's a debate. But once that debate's gone and you now go into, okay, the team's in. I didn't think that they should have been in, but they are. Okay. Now let's talk about the matchup. Well, I'm not going to just, I'm going against them because I didn't think they deserved to be here. Heck, I didn't think Alabama deserved to be here either. And if I was going to pick one of the 2 teams to be here, it would be Oklahoma. So I don't think Alabama should be here. So if you're picking one, so yeah, I would have Notre Dame in and Alabama out and Oklahoma in. But I would probably rather see Vanderbilt or Texas in than Oklahoma, especially since Texas beat Oklahoma. But it is what it is. And now we're in a game of 2 teams that I don't think in this match, look, if you're Indiana, they're the number 1 team, the number 1 seed. You were put in a position that I think is the best position that you should put in, which I think it should be. Now, look, Ohio State's not in a good position. They're the 2nd seed, and look who they get to play. If you're the 2nd seed, you're like, well, wait a second. What if there's an upset one of these 2 games here? Why aren't we here? Why aren't we here? No Kiffin. Why do we get Texas A&M Miami winner? So Indiana, though, they're in a good position. They got 2 teams that have big warts. Okay, now saying that, again, like I said, well, that's that. Now it's a new season. What do we like here? And the reason, some of the reasons I like Oklahoma, and I just told you some of it. I think it's just a one-sided Alabama offense. Everything is going to be about the passing game. They can't run the ball. Alabama is not going to sniff a national championship this year. They don't have any balance at all, and they do not have a elite defense, and they do not have a prolific passing attack. And that's what you need if you have no running game. You have to be elite in something else. They are not. So because of that, will they get past Oklahoma? Sure they could. They're a favorite. Can they get past Indiana? I don't see it. I think Oklahoma can get past Indiana, though. And the reason I think Oklahoma can get past Indiana is, look, if I'm Indiana, I don't want Oklahoma. Because, again, if you're Indiana, you got a really good defense, too. Then you're in the same situation. All right, one-dimensional team, and we can handle that. With Oklahoma, though, the reason why I'm taking them, first of all, they're at home. They've beaten this team twice in the last, 12 months, something like that. They just beat them on the road a few weeks ago. And as I was saying when I was going over the game a month ago, this could be a bad matchup for Alabama because of that, because they can't run the ball, and Oklahoma is a very good defense. So we saw what happened last week with Georgia, 2 weeks ago with Georgia. Georgia is a really, if you look at Georgia, they're like a team defensively that they are. I think it is their. Let me see where their pass defense is. Georgia's pass defense. How far down is it? I don't know if it's this far down or not. Let's see. There it is, 48. Okay, that's not very good. That is not good. Like a national, because again, this is still the passing era of football. So yeah, that's not good. Now they're good against the run, but not so good against the pass. And even though that's the case, okay, so you look at their rush defense, 4th. So you knew Alabama was going to run the football last week, but hey, maybe that we could take advantage of Georgia's pass defense because that's the weak spot for Georgia, and they couldn't do it. And I think look, I don't know if the Kalen DeBoer stuff is an issue. And now there's already people, the Michigan job's open now. And no matter what Kalen DeBoer says, and he said it again the other day, I'm not going anywhere. I like it here. I do believe him. But I think what people see, this is the problem, is that unless Michigan hires a head coach before the Alabama game on Friday, there is still doubt. And it's still an issue hanging over the team. And that's a distraction. Now, I don't think I'm not saying that that's the reason I'm taking Oklahoma. I'm just saying it's a potential distraction. And it's one of those things where when you're trying to figure out what happened to Alabama after they were a top 5 team for a good part of the season, what happened to them at the end of the season? And you have to come up with some reasons, like what was it? I don't understand. And so I think there are a variety of things. There are sort of several factors, and I think towards as we got closer to the end of the season, and there was some coaching room because James Franklin was fired, and there was right off the bat. And we talked about it on this channel with our Penn State guys, Marty and Dylan. Give us the top 3 guys that will be potential Penn State head coaches. Kalen DeBoer was one of them. So right there. And let me see exactly when that was. So the Penn State firing happens, where is it? Okay, so he gets fired after the Northwestern game. That's October 11th. Alabama goes okay. So he gets fired after that. So the very next week is the Tennessee game, which is the game that they played their best game of the year. But then the rest of the season, that's when they started to fall apart a little bit. I mean, look, during the playoffs, they didn't fall apart like tremendously. They're still a playoff team. But still, you do wonder whether or not that 6-week period eventually, maybe that first week it didn't really matter, but longer it went, all of a sudden you're hearing things that has to be a factor. So you got the running game isn't good. You got the head coach deal isn't good. I think those are a couple of bad things. And you know how harsh, look, the average sports fan deals with it in their own way, in their own town, with their own team. And a lot of the times there's only, hey, you know what? We got a life. This is sports. We get into it. We're passionate about it. But, you know, we do other things with our lives. And that's just the way it goes. And Alabama, with their football teams, that is their life. That's everything. And I'm not putting them down over it. I'm just saying that's how serious Alabama football is. So for us, if we're, Kalen DeBoer, somebody that might be the head coach somewhere else, and you have a fan base that is not exactly on Kalen DeBoer's side anyway. And they were not happy with the season last season, not making the playoffs. They were not happy losing to Florida State to open the season. And then all of a sudden, they start to wither late in the season, win ugly games. They lose to Oklahoma. They have the Auburn game that went down to the wire. Then they're hearing the rumors, and are we going to get to the playoffs? And there are a lot of people who still believe that if Alabama did not make the playoffs, that DeBoer would have been gone. Nobody knows. I don't think that's the case, but nobody knows. And nobody knows about this either because, hey, Kalen DeBoer, maybe you believe everything he says, and maybe he'll be right. Or maybe Alabama will lose on Friday night, and he'll be the next coach of Michigan on Saturday. I tend to think that he's going to be where he is. The thing, though, that I'm kind of surprised that he's dug in, but I really respect it because what he has gone through this year and what he's going to go through after losing the SEC championship game in the manner in which he lost it, that could have been an easy way out. Because he could still have decided that, who knows, maybe he could have had a relationship. I'm going to go to this team, but I'm going to coach Alabama. You never know. But I really do believe that, and again, this is why I respect it, because it's not easy. And, he put a lot of effort into, when you put that effort into the recruiting and you want to see it come through, and also he knew what he was getting himself involved with here. So he knew what would happen if they lost in the way that they've lost, even though he barely missed the playoffs last year and made the playoffs this year. It's not like he's had two bad seasons. He almost had two playoff seasons in 2 years. And we're dealing with a completely different system. I don't care what you say. Yes, would Nick Saban succeed? Nick Saban would succeed anywhere. But he would be just like, say, Kirby Smart or any other great coach today. He would be winning, but it would not be as easy as it was for him just a few years ago. And so DeBoer is left dealing with that Saban never had to deal with. But again, I just think that this is one of those things that could be a distraction. Now, Alabama, let's get back to maybe some more important details. Alabama as a road favorite this year. 0-2, it should be 0-2 against the spread. And in those games, they included the loss of Florida State, their only loss as a road favorite. And they beat two non-bowl teams, South Carolina and Auburn, by 7 points each. Okay, so as a road favorite, they have not been very good. Now, this is only 1.5. So, they win. Then who cares about the number? Oh, maybe it's 1.5. They win by 1, right? Who cares, right? They won. For Oklahoma, as I mentioned, big situation for Brent Venables. This is going to really tell us whether or not he can coach and be the guy, because you've got a great opportunity here. You're playing a team that's on the ropes, and you're at home. And we know this is also important. Remember, the home team last year in the first round, as we mentioned yesterday, won all 4 games straight up ATS last year in the first round. And another reason I like them is Alabama's kind of having that slide towards the end of the season. Yet Oklahoma has won 4 straight to end the season. All 4 teams are bowl teams, including the Alabama win on the road. And if you look at a couple other factors over the last couple of months, just take a look at the schedules for both teams. Oklahoma's had a much tougher schedule. Oklahoma State played a typical tough SEC schedule down the stretch. They've had losses to Texas. We all know that's the first game where Mateer came back. We shouldn't have played, but lost to Texas. And they also lost to Ole Miss. Those are their two losses, quality losses. Also, in the matchup, all time, Oklahoma 5-1 against Alabama. The dog in the series has never dropped a cover. 6-0 in the series. So there's a lot, for me, a lot to go with here with Oklahoma. I also, even though he threw the 3 interceptions, like I said, I like the fact that he threw for over 300 yards against a good defense. That is what I want to see from Mateer. I want to see that, even though, again, there were some mistakes, there were some positive plays. You've got to be able to get that passing game going. And Mateer is one of those quarterbacks that they brought him here for a reason, to make the playoffs and to do something in the playoffs. And I think Oklahoma's got a chance to do that. If they can beat Alabama, I do believe that they are going to cause problems for Indiana. Next up, 12 o'clock Saturday, Miami, Texas A&M. As I mentioned, check out the link in the description of this video where you can see the interviews I did with both of our analysts from Texas A&M and Miami. And one of the reasons I wanted them on was because, as I've been saying for the past week, these are my top 2 long shot plays to win the national championship. Both of these teams. My original pick to win the national championship over the last 5 or 6 weeks was Notre Dame. That was my pick. I was very confident about it. I felt great going to, I thought I was going to the playoffs. I had good money on Notre Dame. I was feeling good. I had all the confidence in the world, and then they did what they did. So I've had to go back and re-examine everything, which I don't like to do, but I did. Of course I did. And look, these would have been my long shots anyway. But now that Notre Dame's not there, I think they have a much better chance. Of course, you have to deal with Indiana and Ohio State, but I do believe that those are vulnerable top seeds. And that's why I think these two teams are, talent-wise, they're right up there with Ohio State and Indiana. I think, and the reason I'm taking Texas A&M to win the game and to make it all the way to the championship is because I just think that they have a little bit more. They've shown me a little bit more too. You've got an SEC battle-tested team against an ACC battle-tested team. And I just, look, Miami has kind of pulled to Toledo. They've won their last 4 by a 151-41 margin. They had the loss to SMU and a loss that they shouldn't have had. And I mean, it was a bad way to lose on a penalty that gave SMU second life, and SMU wins. But since the loss, as Gary said, they've kind of opened things up a little bit more on offense, and that's been a big benefit to them. They have really good talent. They have a freshman, star wide receiver. Fletcher is a good, solid running back, and they have an experienced quarterback in Beck. One of the knocks on Miami, Cristobal, is he doesn't win the big game. And that is one thing. Again, that's one of the reasons why I'm siding with Texas A&M here. But it's also a reason why if Miami can win this game, then all of a sudden, now Cristobal, he can win these big games. And maybe this, see, the way the playoffs work, especially at this level with these young kids, man, and this is one of the reasons I'm against Alabama. Confidence is so important in any sport for an individual and a team. I don't see any confidence at all in Alabama. And when we're talking about these teams, the winner of this game will have a lot of confidence, and they will know what they would have accomplished here in winning a good game against a good team. And then they'll go into the matchup with Ohio State, and they'll be the dog, and they'll be expected to lose. But if they can win that game, so we're basically saying look, just 25. I think Miami's 25-1, Texas A&M 20-1. I'm putting money on both. The winner gets to play Ohio State. You could, if you win that game, you will look at yourself, you'll look at the bracket, you're now in the semis, and you're gonna say to yourself, we just beat like maybe the best team in college football. So that means we can beat anybody. And it's true. Which is why if they can which whoever wins this game win. So because it's not, I'm not gonna say, it's like, well, you gotta win this game and you gotta win that game. So it's like, you get what I'm saying. The fact is that you'll have a winner out of this matchup going into the Ohio State game, basically needing just to win one game for the confidence to be like, we can win the national championship, which I believe they will be able to. So that's the reason why I think they're a live dog, either one of these teams. And that's why I will feel that way on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, as long as I see it. Like if I see some 20-17 lackluster performance, hey, one of these teams won, but there were 3 turnovers and there was less than 500 yards of total offense for both teams with a lot of firepower. And yeah, it was it's like nobody wanted to win, but someone had to. Well, I'm not taking that winner against Ohio State. Then I'm not going to do it. But I don't believe that's what we're going to see. I believe we're going to see a really good football game. I believe we're going to see 2 teams with Miami, the way they ended their season. And yes, did they play mostly cupcakes? Yes. But still, they're still playing their best football of the year. And they've got weapons. They also have a very talented defensive front, maybe the most talented in all of college football. And if there's another team that has maybe an argument, it's Texas A&M. Both of these teams are loaded up front. But what separates, in my opinion, A&M from Miami are several things. A&M's got the home game. You also have A&M's offense. You look at it and just check out. They have got these playmakers that not many teams have. As a matter of fact, I think they're the most, outside of Ohio State, I think they have the most dynamic group of skill position players in all of college football. Let me just see what they're ranked here, because I haven't even looked at it. Where are they? 34 here. See, isn't that interesting? There's Ohio State. Ohio State's 26th in pass offense, and A&M is 34th. And yet, what both of those two teams have at wide receiver and running back, of course, is second to none, except each other. So here are the receivers for Texas A&M. So they go through. They can go. Actually, yeah, they can go. Bethel Roman really started to come on, but these two right here, Craver and Concepcion. I mean, Concepcion broke out as a true freshman at NC State, then and looked like a superstar right off the bat. Then and look, he's not a big guy, and I think that's the only reason why he's not going to be like a top 10 draft pick when he comes out. But he'll be a top pick. He'll be a high pick, and he'll be a very good player at the next level. But so can Mario Craver, who's just a sophomore. And look at these three. Look at the averages here. And that's important too, because if you take a look at Marcel Reed in the beginning of the season, there was big debate because he comes in last year, he plays, and it looks like, okay, maybe they got something here. But for the most part, he struggled. He was too inexperienced, and he was not ready. And then it was a lot of hope that this offseason, if they can get this kid, it was a high recruit, if they can get this kid ready to go, and he can give Texas A&M everything that he's capable of, they could be a very interesting team to watch, a very dangerous team. And that's exactly what he did. He's had a very, very good year for someone that is a first-time week 1 starter. And this is the thing that impresses me. You're almost 9 yards per attempt, sport completion. No, per attempt. And he's up to 244 a game. And he's also capable of running the football. Where is he? He's got almost 500 yards, 6 touchdowns. And that's what I like. Because last year, what was he last year? Last year, a little bit, a yard less here. But as you can see, he had more yards, more touchdowns and yards rushing last year. Just a little bit more. But his overall game is, and even though the stats aren't mind-blowingly different, the fact is that it's like night and day of what he's become this year compared to what he was doing last year. And that's the thing that that I felt had to happen if they were going to be a national championship contender, and it happened. And so that's why I'm excited about Texas A&M, because they've got a dual threat quarterback. And I forgot to show you too that they've got a really good running game. So much so that that we even got to see E.J. Smith, Emmett's son. So you got Owens, Moss, and even E.J. Smith started to play a little bit down the stretch. But Le'Veon Moss, he's the guy. And when we talked to Olin, he said that it looks good that Le'Veon Moss could be ready to play on Saturday afternoon. And he's their best running back. So as you can see, he's missed about half the season. He was the number 1 running back last year, as you can see. He's got that 6.3 average last year. This year, where is he? There he is. Okay. So only 6 games. But Owens is a quality back. And E.J. Smith can give you, and then also special teams. Because keep in mind, Concepcion. I mean, this guy can, look at that, 2 return punts for a touchdown. He's got a rushing touchdown. He's got 9 touchdowns receiving. There are playmakers across the board here for Texas A&M. And what I'm also worried about with Miami is that, sort of like I was saying with Oregon, which we'll get to, their top receivers are freshmen. And so it's asking a lot for, and one of their other fine young running backs is also a freshman. It's just asking a lot for inexperienced type players at age-wise to really help you out over the long haul to try to win a national championship. But for Miami, the reason I'm taking Miami as well as Texas A&M is because even though I like Texas A&M to win the game, if Miami is able to win this game and they win a good game, and it's a convincing game, and they win the game, I don't know, 30-27, it's a great game, and they really put it together, that all of a sudden would give them so much confidence that's why I think they're going to be a very dangerous team. But I'm taking Texas A&M. This is a team that beat LSU by 24 and Missouri by 21 on the road. I just told you about the Alabama 20-9 win against LSU at home. And yet here's a Texas A&M team that, even though they did not have the toughest schedule in the SEC, these were still SEC teams, bowl teams. And to win in a convincing fashion like that, don't forget, also on the road, the win at Notre Dame. But what everybody wants to talk, the only thing everybody wants to talk about with Texas A&M going into the playoffs is, oh, they just got beat up by Texas. Texas ran all over them. And yes, is that a problem for Texas A&M? Yeah, I'm not going to hide the fact that they're not when you match them up with some of these other top teams, that's the thing that they don't have. You know, they're not like a top defensive team. Where are they defensively? But one of the things they do have defensively, where are they? There they are, 19. It's still a respectable defense, and they've got a really good pass rush. Where are they? Let me see. Where are they against the run? Because, again, as I said, they got blitzed up by Texas last time out. Statistically, where are they? So here they are, 38th. So let's see. Log. Here it is. Okay. So this is what everybody remembers. Oh, they gashed Texas. Texas gashed them 218 yards. And that's the last thing they remember. And they gave up 268 to Arkansas and 207 to Missouri. But we know Love is a great running back, and they only gave it 136 here. And look, I'm not. If Texas A&M had a top 10 defense and a top 5 rushing defense, maybe they would be undefeated. But this was a team that was undefeated all season until their final game against their rival. Who was the last team to lose to their rival as a favorite? Matter of fact, let me see here. Just want to double check. Let's see. Oh. Wait, why am I seeing that? Okay, just want to make sure. So what was the last team to do that? Just from your recollection, and they weren't undefeated, Ohio State, but they go all the way to the end of the season. They're on a roll. They're one of the best teams in college football. They're a heavy favorite to beat Michigan, the biggest spread loss that they've ever had in the series probably. And yet they're able to, after they lose to their arch rivals, they're able to move on and make the run and win a national championship. And that's exactly what Texas A&M needs to do. They lost to their arch rival. So my point of that is Ohio State was what, 19-point favorite in that game? Texas A&M was like a 2-point favorite. Okay, so it was a lot more embarrassing for Ohio State to lose the game to Michigan last year than it was for Texas A&M to lose to Texas, even though a lot of people are trying to embarrass Texas A&M by giving up over 200 yards rushing. Much more embarrassing to Ohio State last year. And it did not affect them, and we'll see if it affects Texas A&M. Next up, we go to, actually, you know what? Let me go here. Next up, we go to the later games, 3:30, Ole Miss and Tulane, the two blowout games. And look, we've gone over this before with Tulane. This has not been a good spot for them. And even Ole Miss. I mean, if there's one team in the SEC they would have liked to have avoided, it would be Ole Miss. Not only did they lose to Ole Miss this year, 45-10, the yardage was about minus 250, favoring, of course, Ole Miss. Matter of fact, they were losing 45-3 when they gave up a garbage touchdown. Ole Miss did. Retzlaff, who's had a very solid season for Tulane, had 56 yards passing. Chambliss for Ole Miss had over 300 yards passing and 100 yards rushing. They also beat Tulane in 2023 at Tulane as a 13-point road favorite. Ole Miss won 37-20. And then 2 years prior in 2021 in Ole Miss, the Rebels beat Tulane 61-21 as a 14-point home favorite. So in the 3 games they've played them, they've beaten them 143-51. And so if there's a team that is going to get big point spread, 17 and a half, that's worthy of that based on this matchup, it's Ole Miss. Now, everybody, see, this is another comparison to Ohio State. Ohio State, if you look at the situation where, they lose to Michigan and there was a lot of doubt about whether or not they could respond. Could they respond and how big that was? Now, it's a different respond for Texas, for Ole Miss, but it's sort of like the same thing because a lot of people gave up on Ohio State last year, but a lot of people also felt, well, I don't know, maybe they're going to lose to Tennessee, but maybe they're also going to kind of use it in their favor. And if they do, then watch out. And the watch out happened. Now, I don't know if this will happen to Ole Miss because they're not Ohio State. They don't have that reputation. This is a first big moment for Ole Miss to be in a playoffs, and so there is newness to it, and they're a heavy home favorite. So there's a lot of expectations in a way, even though there are still a lot of people who on the other side. And this is why I think it's a good thing if you want to take Ole Miss and give up the 17, is they are definitely, their mindset is definitely, there's a lot of people doubting us. We can't win now because our coach is gone. And we're going to find out how they respond. And, they don't have to play another SEC team. If they win, they'll play Georgia next. So I think that benefits them greatly. They're also at home. I think that does benefit them greatly. So I think these are going to be really good for them. I think that the only way this is a negative is if, look, I don't know how they're going to respond. Nobody does. But they're much more talented than Tulane. So they're the better team. They got better players. They're at home. They have the history against the program. And it doesn't mean if they win and win big that they're going to win the national championship. I'm not saying that. And out of the 3 long shots I'm taking, they're definitely the one. I'm also going to put a few bucks on them to win the championship because, look, if Lane Kiffin was here, people would put Ole Miss in the running to win a national championship. And they would only be, and it would be like 12-1. So why not at double the price? I know the coach isn't there, but at double the price, I think it's worth it. I don't think they're going to win the national championship. They might even lose right away against Georgia next week. But I think they're worth it because they got the talent. And maybe this is also what they just need because it can maybe take some pressure away from them. That not just because, we're not supposed to win. But in that respect, it's like, hey, we, like I said, we have something to prove. And it could take a lot of the pressure off because they're more than likely at some point would have been pressure on Lane Kiffin, even though they got there, on Lane Kiffin to keep proving and to prove that you can do this, to go up against Georgia, to prove it again. Well, you don't have to prove it anymore because he's not here, and everybody's going to expect you to lose to Georgia. So we'll see. I want to see how they play here, though. Same thing with Texas A&M and Miami. I want to see how they play. I expect they're going to win. I expect they're going to cover. We'll see if they can do that, and we'll see if they can do it in really good fashion. So John Sumrall, he'll be the new head coach at Florida, but he is going to coach the game, and he is also going to coach against Ole Miss, with Florida at some point. So that'll be something. Will Hall, by the way, takes over as the head coach at Tulane next year. I don't understand this hire myself. He was a successful Division II head coach, but did not do well at all at Southern Miss. That was a bad program. That's the reason why everybody had these high accolades for Huff, because Hall did so poorly there. So Huff comes in, and Southern Miss is a win away from being in the championship game all of a sudden, and he gets the Memphis job. And then Will Hall gets the head coach of Tulane. But that's next year. And then Oregon and James Madison. And in this one, this will be the late one at 7:30 Eastern. My preseason group of 5 number 1 team, James Madison, made it to the playoffs. I know they didn't make it the way I thought they were, but hey, they made it anyway. Bob Chesney's going to UCLA when it's all said and done, and Billy Napier will take over at James Madison. Of course, we know they've only played one Power 4 team, and that was a 28-14 loss at Louisville earlier in the season. There's a really good angle trend in this game for either James Madison or Oregon in a positive way. You want to find out what that trend is, you got to get the bowl guide from Mark. And again, you get it at playbooksports.com. Okay, and you can get the link in the description of this video. Now, couple things. First of all, Oregon last year loses the first game they played, the quarterfinal game, to Ohio State. So they're looking to get a W in the playoffs. So it'd be very important for them. I'm sure Lanning wants to get that ugly taste off. And hey, let's get a playoff win here, no matter what the spread is. Both of their assistant coaches, top assistants, will be leaving when the playoffs are done. Their offensive coordinator will be the head coach at Kentucky. Their defensive coordinator will be the head coach at Cal. So that shows you a lot, and that's a problem for Lanning in Oregon next year. As far as this year, they're not a pick of mine to win a national championship because I think they're too young. I've said that all season, and I don't think that they're going to be able to navigate through tough teams to win a national championship. And do it, especially 3 times against Power 4 teams. But I do think they'll handle James Madison. There's some warning signs about James Madison. Even though they've had some big blowout, convincing wins, they've also, as I mentioned before, at Washington State, they were losing to Washington State in the fourth quarter. They had the game what was the other game? There was another game. I forget which one it was. I know we mentioned the game against against Louisiana, when they won that game by just 10 points. And they won a few games like that. Like I said, they didn't blow out everybody. They beat Marshall. Oh, that's right. That was the game. They lost the yards battle at Marshall. And in that game, they had a late touchdown that they shouldn't have. It was like the Alabama touchdown against Vanderbilt. That game was actually like very, very close throughout. They were very fortunate to win that game. And that one again, even that was on the road, but still, that was a Marshall team that was a decent team, but I wouldn't put them at the top of the Sun Belt like Old Dominion. And that coincidentally was one of their better games. They just annihilated Old Dominion in that one, which was a big surprise, but they did. They also went to Georgia State, one of the worst teams in the Sun Belt, and won 14-7. Okay. And he had less than 300 yards of total offense. So they've had some of those games. Yes. Did they beat a team by 48? Yes. Did they beat Old Dominion by almost 40 points? Yes. So they had some of those good. Did Coastal Carolina, did they annihilate them? Yes. But remember the Troy game, the championship game against Troy? That was close. The score was misleading because the quarterback got hurt and it just kind of deflated the team, and they had a couple late scores. But that game, late in the third quarter, I believe it was, might have even been early fourth, that was a 1-possession game. And they were, a 23-point favorite in the game. So there are just too many of those games. And then, look, the Louisville, the game was a 14-point game. And Louisville's not Oregon. And this one's at Oregon. And going to Oregon is not an easy place to play, especially if you haven't been there before. So this is asking way too much for James Madison. I don't see it. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. So what's the total? See, if the total is 47, then I believe what they believe is going to happen is Oregon is going to win 35-10. That's why they got 47. But I think James Madison will score, and I think Oregon's also going to score. So I'm looking at this as more. I'm definitely going over, but I'm not a totals guy. But I would definitely go over here. I think the only way this is not an over is if James Madison scores 3 points. They don't score in double figures, probably. That's it. And I'd be surprised by that because, again, James Madison has shown the ability to have, a big offensive game. Now, look, they're a running team. They can throw the ball, but they're a running team. Let's see. What's their rush offense? 5th in the country. All right. And where's Oregon's rush defense? Let's see. Where are they? 20th. So that's not bad. So, I think James Madison will be able to do something, but Oregon would just be too much for him, and I'll look at something along the lines of like, again, if I was going with the total, which I'm not good at, I would do something like, I don't know, 48 to 48 to 24, something like that. Oregon covers. Okay, so that's it for first round action. Now, let's go to the brackets as we close out. And these will be I got to make my final predictions here for the preseason preview. So again, like I said, when I'll take a look at these first round games, and I might change my mind, but my preseason bracket preview, I'm going to go with Oregon. Obviously, I'm going 2 for 2 with the home teams this year, just like last year. I'm going all the home teams. So I'm taking Oregon, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M to win and cover. So I'm taking Texas Tech over Oregon. I'm taking Oklahoma over Indiana. And you might say, well, I'm crazy. If you weren't with me yesterday, I pointed this out. Because this is something that, no matter who they play, this is something that probably will be brought up. Remember who the number 1 team was last year in the Rose Bowl? Oregon. And they did not win that game. Now, they played a team that they had already beaten, so that's definitely different. But the number 1 Big Ten champion that played in the Rose Bowl lost the Rose Bowl. And again, I think if it's Alabama, I'll take Indiana. But if it's Oklahoma, and it depends what I see from Oklahoma. If I see a good performance from John Mateer, then I'm sticking with him. But if I see an ugly win for Oklahoma against Alabama and Mateer does not have a good game, then I'll probably take Indiana. But I'm going into this saying Mateer will play well and they'll pull off the upset. And it's because I just do not like the Big Ten this year compared to the last few years. I think there's a big difference, a major difference in the last couple of years. Ohio State and Michigan, the last 2 years to this year. Major difference talent-wise. I think these 2 Big Ten teams are vulnerable. I think they're just as good as any playoff team. Any of them. I think there's no major difference. The only difference I see, like with Alabama, is that they're not playing well. But if they beat Oklahoma, then depending on how they beat them, maybe they'll be able to give Indiana a game. But all of these teams, whether it's Ohio State or Indiana, I think it's very even. And therefore, and I also don't like the matchup. Again, if it's Alabama, I'm probably going to go with Indiana. But I don't think Oklahoma is a good matchup for Indiana. I think There'll be pressure on Indiana. Pressure. There was no pressure on Indiana against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. They were the dog. No pressure. They will now be dealing with pressure. They are the number one team in the nation. They are undefeated. They have not lost yet. And they've never been in this position before. This is not a program. Yes, did it get their feet wet last year? And that is the important thing. No question about it. Very important that they did play last year. I think they'd be much more vulnerable if they had not this year. But they did get that last year. And maybe that's what they need. Again, maybe if they and look, can Indiana and Ohio State win the national championship? Maybe they play each other. It's a rematch. Absolutely. But I see no value whatsoever in taking two teams or even Georgia that are all short prices to win the national championship. And I do not see a major difference in talent between those teams and some of the others where I'm getting much more value. There's no value with these three teams. Even though Georgia's getting twice as much, the reason why there's no value with Georgia, I'm only getting 5-1. And Georgia will have to beat Ole Miss twice. Then they got to beat Ohio State just to get to the, again, I'm going chalk, just to get to the championship game. And then they'd have to beat Indiana, the number one team in the country, undefeated. And I'm getting 5-1. That's all you're giving me? Come on now. I'll keep that money there. This is where you start to get, okay, I'm not saying it's great value, but okay. I mean, now we're getting decent odds, or Texas Tech, Oregon. And then here is, without question, the big value. Texas A&M, Miami, Ole Miss. I do not think Oklahoma has what it takes to win a national championship. I think they can win a couple of games, but I don't think they can win a national championship. I don't think they have enough offense to do that. Unless, of course, Mateer just lights it up. And where was he? Where was his stats early in the season? Because even though, here's Oklahoma. Let me see. Here he is. Okay. So early in the season, he started looking like the real deal. And he had the big, look at that, almost 400 yards to an FCS team. It's a nice start. Then he has a really good game against a quality opponent, Michigan. Comes right back, easy win against an easy team. Then Auburn, very good defensive team, puts up good numbers. And then the injury happens. Okay, so this John Mateer, if Oklahoma can get this John Mateer, then watch out. So at 50-1, oh yeah, I mean, it's sort of like Ole Miss in a way, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, I don't really think Ole Miss will win a national championship. I don't really think Oklahoma will win, but I'm getting 25 and 50-1 to win with this type of quality. And look at it this way too. Taking a look at the bracket for both of these types of long shots. Let's just say just those two particular, because they're in different brackets. So just like I see with Ole Miss has a different, they got a tougher road, I think, because they would have to potentially beat 3-2 just to get to the championship game. So to win a national championship, they might have to beat 3-2-1. Okay. Oklahoma, they got one game. Let's just get it all over with. They beat one. And now, who knows? Maybe you're playing 4, maybe you're playing 5. And then you're in the championship game, and hey, What happens if there is an upset here? How do you know there won't be? Or okay, it could be Georgia, could be A&M, could be Miami. I don't think it'll be Ole Miss. Could be, but there are possibilities there. Meaning this is a much bigger. So you're getting 50 to 1 with Oklahoma, 25 to 1 with Ole Miss. But honestly, Oklahoma has probably got the better road ahead. Now they're 50 to 1 though, because Ole Miss gets they're going to buy basically here. Oklahoma may lose on Friday night. And I think that's why you're getting double the price. So I you know, and the good thing is when you're getting 50 to 1, I don't have to put up a lot, but I would do it. This is the only team I wouldn't right here. And I wouldn't do Oregon either, just because of the fact that, like I said, I just think they're too young. They're more than capable. Absolutely more than capable. And maybe they pull off a Tennessee. You know, Dylan Gabriel and all these other studs and guys that went to the NFL last year. Just like, hey, Peyton Manning and Tennessee, and they didn't win. And I can't believe we didn't win a national championship with Peyton Manning. And then as soon as he graduates the very next year, T. Martin comes out and wins a national championship. Could happen at Oregon. Never know. But I'd rather take Texas Tech. I just think they're too young. It was still a veteran team that won. It was still a veteran, battle-tested group. This is still a lot of transfers and young players, and I just think it's a different era. Comparing him to Tennessee is what I'm saying. Okay. So I'm going to have Oklahoma and Texas Tech in the semis, and I've got Texas Tech in the championship game. I just think that Texas Tech, they've got a tremendous defense. They have, as good as a front seven as there is in college football. They got studs up there. One of the best linebackers in the country. They've got a veteran quarterback. They're just a very good football team. They are for real. And I just think they've got more in them than just beating Oregon. I just do. And look, they're not battle tested more than Indiana. I'm not trying to say that. They're not. But hey, they're 25 to 1. So it's not like I'm not 25 to 1. They're 8 to 1. So they're getting almost double, more than double than Indiana. So that's the way it should be. Indiana's more battle tested. They deserve to be. Now, I'm not saying they should be 2 to 1 because I don't think they should be. I would rather see Indiana. Obviously, honestly, I think they should be more like 5 to 1 or 6 to 1, just like Ohio State should be. And all these other teams should be moved back a little bit. Maybe Texas Tech should be 12 to 1 or 14 to 1. But yeah, they should be more than double of Indiana. I got no problem with that. But matchup wise, if they play each other in the semifinals, I don't think there's a big difference at all from either one of these teams. No difference at all. I think the only big difference is that Mendoza is a more talented quarterback prospect than McGuire. And I'm not even going to say that much of a better college quarterback, because I don't think Mendoza is that much more better of a college quarterback than McGuire. I just think Mendoza is just, a better NFL prospect. That's all. Meaning Texas Tech has got a quarterback that has he's got just the kind of qualities you want. If you're thinking about, do you have a championship caliber quarterback? Texas Tech has that. So I think Indiana, even though I like who they're going to play based on this matchups. I mean, based on, who it could have been. Who could have been Miami and Texas A&M, but you're getting Alabama, Oklahoma. Even though that's the case, like I said, if they play Oklahoma and then let's say they play Texas Tech, if that's their 2 games that they're going to be playing, then those are going to be tough because they're going to be going up two of the best defensive teams in the country. And Indiana is also a very good defensive team. The interesting thing is between those three teams, if let's just say Oklahoma beats Alabama, between those three teams, they are so similar. They're all three very good defensive teams with all good talented quarterbacks. This is why, and in my mind, I just don't see a big difference. I don't. And I think Indiana is where they belong. But I just think I don't think they're look. I have no problem taking chalk. I have no problem going with favorites to win when I feel, oh yeah, I mean, of course I'm going to take them. I'm not stupid. Of course I'm going to go down that road. But when I don't see that big a difference, then I'm sorry. I just, especially when I don't see experience of championship experience, championship coach, championship players, history. When I don't see all of that, and I'm not getting any value, and I have a team that hasn't been battle tested, like many other teams have been battle tested before, a lot more than Indiana has, then yeah, I think especially this season and the era we live in college football with the parity and the openness, I'm just, I would have to be somebody that liked Indiana when the season began and was all in on Indiana. That was my pick. That was my sleeper to win the Big Ten. That's my pick mid-season to win the Big Ten, to win the national championship. Great. Then if that was me, that'd be different. But I just never got that. I just never did. I just always looked at a team that was very well coached, had a very talented quarterback. They have a solid defense, good players, good team, very good team. But in this era of college football, they're just not elite. Okay. So moving on. I have Texas Tech, even if they play Indiana. I have them here in the championship game. I have Ole Miss against Georgia. I'm taking Georgia to win. I've got Texas A&M, Ohio State, and I'm taking Texas A&M. I'm putting both Big Ten teams down. Even though I will say that if I had to pick one of the Big Ten teams to lose and I have to pick one to move on, I'm picking Ohio State to move on. So, but I'm taking Texas A&M. And it's going to be Texas A&M, Georgia. And then I'm taking Texas A&M against Texas Tech. So that's going to be my bracket picks right here. And who knows? Maybe it winds up being 1 versus 2, like I said. Because where was last year's? I had it here. Let me see if I could find it. Okay. Almost forgot something there. Let's see. 2024 college. Oh, wait. Cancel. Yeah, I don't want to be here when I do that. Come on. What are you doing that for? Move this over. Okay. 2024 college. There it is. Okay. Let's see. Nope. I don't want that one. It's too big. Went through this yesterday. Yeah, let's just do this one. Wikipedia one because it's really small, but I know I can fit it on the screen. Okay. So I'm going to close by just going over a refresher of last year's bracket. The only time we've ever had a 12-team playoff. Okay. So here we have this. Okay. So remember, now I know they change things around. They no automatic championship team went to the Final Four, got a bye. I mean, which actually turned into be a stupid decision because of that we don't have Notre Dame in the playoffs. So it turned out to be a stupid decision. And we should have had Duke. Duke should be there, not James Madison. Even though James Madison was my preseason, I remember this. Nobody had James Madison. Not many people had James Madison as a Group of 5 pick. It was either your American champion or Boise State. Nobody was going to pick a Sun Belt team to be the national champion, so a Group of 5 pick. But the point is that even though I had them there, look, I think Duke deserved it over James Madison. Okay, still, I think Notre Dame should have been there. I'd still have Alabama. I still have Texas, Vanderbilt, all those teams over James Madison, of course. But hey, if James Madison's going to get in, then I'd because Duke wasn't highly ranked enough, I think that's wrong. And it's wrong because it's simple. Duke played a Power 4 schedule week in and week out. James Madison didn't have to do that. It's one thing if you want to have a Group of 5 representative. That's fine. I have no problem. I think that's great. I think that's the way it should be. But the second Group of 5 team who did and over the ACC champion, how do you know James Madison wouldn't have 4 losses or whatever Duke had, 5 losses? I don't know what Duke had. Who knows if they had Duke's schedule? Nobody knows that. All right. Anyway, my point. Semifinals. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 over 7. Okay? Now, you can say what you want about the one. There's only one major difference. Okay? One. Let's see. And that is you had the how good was Boise last year? Man, Ashton Genty sure was awesome last year. It's too bad he's on the Raiders, huh? They were ranked. Oh, they didn't have him there? I got to look at UNLV. 10th. So Boise was ranked 10th in the championship game. Okay. Anyway. So I'm not even going to count Boise. That's, let's say, Boise or Arizona State. That's 2 teams. Okay. Oregon was the first ranked team. And I'm not even going to count Georgia because Georgia had a quarterback problem. Okay. But Oregon was the number 1 team and they got eliminated. And Penn State was the Big Ten runner-up. So they were really, what were they, sixth seed. So is that pretty much like Oregon? They've got the seeds here. Oregon's 5th seed. So it's pretty similar. And yet Penn State made their way all the way to the semifinals and lost a very close game to Notre Dame, who was the 7th seed. So even if Notre Dame was considered like the 5th seed, let's say Penn State's the 4 seed, and because we have a couple Arizona State and Boise State thing in here. So let's just say we're going to give a couple spots. It's still 5 against 6 in the championship game, with 4 against 5, and say 5 against 6. And here, that's pretty much like Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas Tech. I mean, Texas A&M is right there because realistically, I mean, 7 and like, let's see, Texas A&M is 7. And so I have 7 against 4. What was it? It was 7 losing to 8. So we'll find out at the end of this playoff run if the changes are going to make that big of a drastic improvement as well. will we see chalk more in these playoffs? Of course, we're going to see a lot more chalk this year because of the fact that we don't have Boise State or Arizona State in the semis, but I mean in the quarters. But how much chalk? Is it going to be completely chalked? Are we going to see, one against 1 through 4 in the semis? We'll see. Very possible, because it's all possible. But I think statistically speaking, because any of these teams can win at any week, I think to expect 1 versus 4 in the semis, that would be surprising to me. And that's what I'm betting against, and we'll see if that works out or not for me. Okay, so we'll talk more about all this stuff next week, of course. We'll have the show tomorrow at 1 o'clock. The guys in Las Vegas, 3 o'clock Eastern, the guys in Las Vegas. We will return on Thursday with the Playbook ATS podcast, and then again on Friday. So we'll talk more NFL college football here with our group on Thursday and Friday. You can get NFL tomorrow with the boys from Las Vegas. And I'll talk NFL with these guys coming up in the next couple of days. I don't expect to do any sort of NFL show. Just taking a look at my NFL stuff here. I got all this college football. Where did I put the NFL stuff? Oh, there it is. And of course, it all kicks off on Thursday with a major game with the Rams in Seattle. I actually like the Rams in that one, but I haven't done my research yet. Let's see. I like the Rams. Anything else stick out? I think the Bucs are going to be just fine. But Carolina seems to play a lot better whenever their backs are against the wall, and they're not very good in the opposite direction. Kansas City is going to be interesting to see how they react. I really like the Chargers against the Cowboys. Let's see. I like Denver against the Jags. Pittsburgh's getting a lot of points from Detroit. I like New England against Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. And I like the Colts against San Francisco. The Colts, a lack of respect. I mean, Phillip Rivers goes out there. It doesn't have a phenomenal game, but he goes out there, and they're a 53-yard field goal miss away from beating Seattle as a 13.5-point road dog. And he makes the field goal, and they lose. And now they're going home, and they're a 6-point dog to San Francisco, a team who's feasted on, a patsy schedule. So, yeah, I'm very surprised by that. No respect with the line there. So I think the Colts might be a really good money line play. But anyway, we'll talk more about that in the next few days. You have more than enough expert handicappers to check out here on Proline TV. And I'll go over my stuff more than likely with these guys. If not, we'll definitely have a bunch of games on Thursday with Mark. And then when I'm in control on Friday, I'll make sure to go over all the other key games, because there are about a handful of games that really don't matter, but a good enough amount of games that do. So looking forward to that. Anyway, Seth, appreciate it. Likewise, I see that comment just came out a few minutes ago, so I'm glad you found us, and I hope you do. Hope you have a really good bracket. And again, remember, I have the thumbnail that's going to come out. I'm going to post a separate video that's just for the bracket predictions. And I've already created the thumbnail, and it says, no chalk allowed. So that's basically what this bracket was. It was a no chalk bracket. It doesn't mean that, that was just how I like it when it's, let's just don't go chalk and see what happens. No, it's just that's just going to be my bracket. It's just going to be the way that it is. So, but I just wanted to prove a point with last year's bracket that we saw what happened last year. That's not the reason I did it this year. Matter of fact, I think last year was a great example, though, just like it is this year, of it is just wide open now in college football in the playoffs. any of these teams can win at any time in any week. And I just see a lot more of that. Well, look, I think we'll find out with the first round, because remember last year 4-0 straight up ATS first round. If that changes right off the bat, and we'll find out to begin with on Friday night, maybe that's the first sign. That's the way I always look at it. Like if I see Alabama beating Oklahoma on Friday night, all right, I'm going to start changing some of my opinions already, because that'll be the first road team winning. But if Oklahoma wins, then I'm gonna be like, okay, home teams again on Saturday, all 3 games. I'm going with it. So we'll see. I think that definitely could come into play. So we'll find out. We'll see how the brackets compare as we move along here. And as I said, we'll talk a lot more NFL too, starting tomorrow. I'm not sure if Jim Feist is going to be available tomorrow. I know he's battling hard. He's got these treatments for the cancer. And so he's up and he's down, he's up and he's down. So I hope he's up tomorrow, but we're all telling him to take his time and just relax and don't worry about going anywhere, doing anything, because getting healthy is the primary thing. And I'm sure he's going to heed that advice. So I don't think he needs us to say that to him. He knows he needs to just get healthy, and that's what we're all praying for him. And we all have all the confidence in the world that he will. So, you know what it is when you're dealing with those types of treatments, it's a killer, and it really messes with you. And so it doesn't mean that you're going anywhere. It just means that you got to deal with it, and it sucks. And I don't ever want to be in that position. That's for sure. I do not envy Jim or anybody that has to deal with cancer treatments of any kind. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you're able to benefit from any of this information, whether you agree with some of my picks or you don't. That's not the reason I do this. As I said, I am not a professional handicapper. I'm just here to provide as much information as possible, and I hope it helped. So enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the first week of the playoffs. Enjoy the bowls, and we'll see you again real soon right here on ProLine TV.